I know that look, Holmes. Out with it.
No, you seem to have things neatly wrapped up, Holmes. I can't help thinking your evidence is not complete.
What do you mean?
You have no body.
Well, of course we do.
The burnt to a crisp pile of flesh on the wood pile over there? I think not.
Can you produce the body then?
Without a doubt.
I don't know whether you're playing a game with us or not, Mr. Sherlock Holmes. If you have anything to say, surely you can say it without all this tomfoolery.
Just be a moment.
Do you have any idea what he's on about?
Rarely. Much is Lestrade.
I gave it up just last week.
A bit of yellowing at your fingernails and that ash at your waistcoat pocket speak otherwise. When I return, play along, will you? Fire! Fire! Everyone out!
Fire!
Lestrade, allow me to present your not-so-dead body, Mr. Goldegger.
What's this then? What have you been doing all this time, eh?
I have done no harm.
Done no harm. You have done your very best to see an innocent man hanged.
It was a practical joke.
How did you know where she was hiding?
Elementary. When I paced one corridor and found that it was 6 feet shorter than the corresponding one, it was pretty clear she'd made herself a special hiding place. Advantages of being a builder. We could have gone in and taken her, but it amused me to make her reveal herself.
It was a joke, sir. A practical joke. Nothing more.
That's for the jury to decide. Come with me. You see that pair? Greatest detective duo the world has ever seen. Good evening, gentlemen.
Well, you've done it again, Holmes.
I'm sure this case will make a fine entry into your catalogue of stage productions. What will you call it?
I'm thinking The Adventure of the Norwood Builder.
Rather obvious title, isn't it? The skills seem to be showing limits.
Well, it's a working title. Honestly, Holmes. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the adventures of Sherlock Holmes. My name is Dr. John Watson. In the year 1878, I took my degree of Doctor of Medicine from the University of London. Having completed my studies, I was duly attached to the 5th Northumberland Fusiliers as assistant surgeon. We served in India at first, before moving on to Afghanistan and the Afghan War. During the Battle of Maiwand, I was struck by a Jezile bullet in the shoulder. While recuperating at an army hospital in Peshawar, I was so weak and emaciated that a medical board determined that not a day should be lost in sending me back to England. As fantastical as all that may sound to you, my adventures as an army surgeon pale in comparison to my adventures with Sherlock Holmes, whom you have just met. And what you have just seen is the conclusion to one of our adventures, which we may show you in the future in its entirety. But tonight, I want to share with you the first account of my adventures with Holmes, the best and the wisest man whom I have known. I have endeavored to give some account to the strange experiences I've had in his company. He was a remarkable man. I have decided the best way to chronicle our incredible adventures together would be through the form of theatrical engagement. I have dramatized our exploits in the form of plays, which we will be presenting to you. So, welcome to the adventures of Sherlock Holmes in our first case together, which I will call A Study in Scarlet.
Watson,
Yes?
do you remember me?
I didn't. Hello, yes, nice to see you again.
Whatever have you been doing with yourself, Watson? You look as thin as a nut and as brown as a nut.
I regaled him with stories of adventure as a assistant surgeon in the 5th Northumberland Fusiliers with a few minor embellishments.
Poor devil. What an amazing story.
And now I'm back in London looking for affordable lodgings. You see, I'm trying to sort the problem whether it's possible to find a comfortable room at a reasonable price.
That's a strange thing. You are the second man today to use that same expression to me.
And who was the first?
A fellow who was working at the chemical laboratory at the hospital. He was bemoaning this morning that he could not get someone to go halves with him on some nice rooms he had found, but were too much for the perks.
Well, by Jove, if he is looking for someone to share the rooms and the expense, then I'm the man for him.
You don't know Sherlock Holmes yet. Perhaps you would not care for him.
Why? What is there against him?
A wouldn't say there was anything against him. He is a little unusual in his ideas, an enthusiast in some branches of science. As far as I know, he is a decent fellow enough.
Well, I should like to meet him. If I'm to lodge with anyone, I prefer a man with studious and quiet habits. How can I meet this friend of yours?
He is surely at the laboratory. If you like, we shall drive around together.
Certainly. Stamford, that was his name. It's funny how the memory works.
You mustn't blame me if you don't get on with him. I know nothing more of him than when I learned meeting with him occasionally in the laboratory. You proposed this arrangement, so you must not hold me responsible.
It seems to me, Stamford, that you have some reason for washing your hands of the matter. Is this gentleman's temper so formidable? What is it? Come now, don't be mealy-mouthed about it, Stamford.
It's not easy to express the inexpressible. Holmes is a little too scientific for my tastes. It approaches to cold-bloodedness. You could imagine he's giving a friend a little pinch of the latest vegetable alkaloid, not out of malevolence, you understand, but simply out of a spirit of inquiry, in order to have an accurate idea of the effects. Look here.
I found it! I found it! I have a reagent which is precipitated by hemoglobin and by nothing else.
Dr. Watson, Mr. Sherlock Holmes.
Pleasure to meet you. You've been to Afghanistan, I see.
How on earth did you know that?
Never mind. The question now is about hemoglobin. No doubt you see the significance of my discovery.
Well, it is interesting chemically, no doubt, but practically?
Why, man, it is the most practical medical legal discovery for years. Don't you see that this gives us an infallible test for the presence of blood stains? Come over here now. Some fresh blood.
You must be joking.
Fine, if you want something done. Now, as I add the blood, you'll perceive the resulting mixture still has the appearance of pure water. The portion could not be more than 1 in a million, and yet I do believe we shall obtain the characteristic reaction. Ha! Would you look at that?
Which is a very delicate test.
Beautiful, beautiful. The old Wagner test was very clumsy and uncertain, as is the microscopic examination for blood corpuscles. And the latter is valueless if the stains are even a few hours old. However, this appears to work whether the blood is old or new. Had this test been invented, there are hundreds of men now walking the earth who would long ago have paid the penalty of their crimes.
Indeed, remarkable.
Criminal cases are continually hinging upon this one point. Someone suspected of a crime, perhaps months after it's occurred. Their linens or clothing are examined, their presence of brownish stains is discovered upon them. But what is it? Is it blood stains or mud stains or rust stains or what are they? This is a question which has puzzled many an expert. And why? Because there was no reliable test. But now we have the Sherlock Holmes test, there will no longer be any doubt.
You should be congratulated.
I could name a score of cases in which it would have been decisive. The Von Bischoff at Frankfurt case last year, he would most certainly have unhung. Mason of Bedford, Notorious Monarch, Samson of New Orleans, Lefebvre of Montpellier.
You seem to be a walking calendar of crime. You might start a paper on those lines. Call it Police News of the Past.
Interesting reading. It might be made, too. I have to be careful. I dabble in poisons a great deal.
Good heavens.
We have come here on business, Holmes. My friend here wants to take diggings, and as you were complaining that you could get no one to go halves with you, I thought I had better bring you together.
I have my eye on a suite of Baker Street. It would suit us down to the ground. I generally keep chemicals about and occasionally do experiments. Would that annoy you?
By no means.
All right. Well, let's see. What are my other shortcomings? I get the dumps at times. Don't open my mouth for days on end. Mustn't think I'm sulky when I do that. Just let me alone. I'll soon be right. What have you to confess now? Just as well for two fellows to know the worst of one another if they're to live together.
Well, I object to Rose because my nerves are shaken. I get up at all sorts of ungodly hours. I have another set of vices when I'm well, but those are the principal ones at present.
Gambling man.
Good guess.
Oh, yes. Just an observation. Do you consider violin playing in your category of roles?
It depends on the player. A well-played violin is a treat for the gods. A poorly played one, however.
Well, I think we shall consider the thing as settled. That is, if the rooms are agreeable to you.
I suppose I should like to see them.
Oh, well, meet me at this address, noon tomorrow.
All right. Noon exactly. It was a pleasure meeting you, Holmes.
Likewise, Watson.
He's a pleasant fellow, a bit unorthodox. By the way, how the deuce did he know I had been to Afghanistan? Or about my vice?
That's peculiarity. A good many people have wanted to know how he finds things out.
Oh, a mystery, is it? How very piquant. I am much obliged to you for bringing us together. The proper study of mankind is man, you know.
You must study him then. You'll find him a naughty problem, though. I'll wager he learns more about you than you about him.
I'll take that bet. A pound?
Easiest money I've ever earned. Goodbye, Watson. Good luck.
Goodbye. The next day, Holmes and I met, as arranged, at 221B Baker Street.
Ah, on time, I see. Genuinely good quality.
Leftover army training, I suppose. This is a decent area.
Yes, this would be very nice. Ah, here comes the landlady.
Mr. Holmes, so nice to see you.
Mrs. Hudson. Allow me to introduce Dr. John Watson.
Pleased to meet you.
A doctor, how lovely. Do come in, gentlemen. There are 2 bedrooms that way, as well as a small kitchen. And of course, this would make a lovely sitting room.
Yes, this will do very nicely.
Yes, I like it quite a bit. We'll take it.
Wonderful!
That very evening I moved my things into the apartment, and for a day or two we busily employed ourselves with unpacking and laying about our property to the best advantage. Holmes was not a difficult man to live with. He was quiet in his ways and his habits were regular. It was rare to see him up past 10 at night, and he invariably had breakfast and gone out before I rose in the morning. For the first few weeks, things were fairly uneventful. There were times, however, where he would sit like this for days on end. He would not utter a single word or move a muscle. As the weeks went by, my interest in him deepened. There was a mystery to him, and I spent most of my time trying to unravel it. He had a zeal for the study of eccentric knowledge. His ability to read a subject was remarkable. No man burdens his mind with small matters unless he has some very good reason for doing so. Yet his ignorance was as remarkable as his knowledge. Of contemporary literature, philosophy, and astronomy, he appeared to know next to nothing. You are not aware that the earth revolves around the sun?
You appear to be astonished. Now that I do know it, I shall do my best to forget it.
To forget it?
Yes, I consider a man's brain originally to be like a little empty attic. He must stock it with such furniture as he chooses. A fool takes in all the lumber of every sort that he comes across, so that his brain becomes, it pushes out all the knowledge which might be of use to him. Or at best gets jumbled up with a lot of other things, so he has difficulty in laying his hands upon it.
An attic?
A skilled workman is very careful indeed as to what he takes into his brain attic. He shall only have the tools required for his work in all in perfect order. For every new bit of knowledge you take in, you forget something you knew before.
But the solar system?
What the deuce is it to me? You say we go around the sun. If we went around the moon, what pennyworth of difference would it make to my work?
Well, I have set about to list the limits of Sherlock Holmes. Of contemporary literature, philosophy, and astronomy, nil. Politics, feeble. Botany, variable. Well up in opium and poisons generally. He knows nothing of practical gardening, but geology, practical but limited. He, at a glance, can tell different soils from each other, and by their colour he can tell from what part of London they come from. Chemistry, profound. Anatomy, accurate. Sensational literature, immense. He knows every detail of every crime horror perpetrated in the century. He plays the violin well, is an expert boxer and swordsman, and he has a practical knowledge of British law. What ineffable twaddle.
What is it?
Why, this article. Now, I don't deny it is smartly written, but it irritates me. It's not practical. I would lay 1,000 to 1 against it.
You'd lose your money. As for the article, I wrote it myself.
You?
Yes, I have a turn for both reason and for deduction. The theories expressed in that article are really extremely practical. So practical, in fact, that I depend upon them for my butter and cheese.
How so?
I'm a consulting detective. The only one in the world. When the detectives of Scotland Yard are in a need, they come to me. They lay all the evidence on me, and I'm generally able to set them straight.
Do you mean to say that without leaving your room, you can untie a knot that other men can make nothing of?
I have a kind of intuition that way. Now and again, a case turns up which is a little more complex that I need to bustle about to see things with my own eyes. I follow very specific rules of deduction. You yourself appear to be surprised when, upon our first meeting, I told you that you had come from Afghanistan.
Oh, you were told, no doubt.
Nothing of the sort. I knew you'd come from Afghanistan just by looking at you. It all ran swiftly through my mind. You had just come from the tropics, where your face was dark, but that's not the natural tint of your skin, for your wrists were fair. You held your left arm in a very stiff and unnatural manner, so obviously it had been injured. You held yourself with the air of a military man, but also that of the medical type. So where could an English army doctor have met with so much hardship and got his arm injured? Clearly, Afghanistan. The entire train of thought took less than a second.
Oh, it's as simple enough as you explain it. I wonder what that young woman is looking for.
The hawker of flowers down there?
Oh, brag and bounce, you know I cannot verify this myself.
Oh, you shall ask her when she arrives. She's likely delivering a letter to me.
A delivery for you.
Message for Mr.
May I ask, aside from delivering letters, what other trade you may have?
I sell flowers, sir. Just on the corner of Bride Street. Business ain't been too good lately. That's why I've taken up for delivering for the post part-time.
Well, thank you. How in the world did you deduce that?
Deduce what?
That she was a hawker of flowers?
No time for trifles. Excuse my rudeness. You broke the thread of my thoughts. Perhaps it's just as well. You were not able to see that she was a flower hawker?
No, indeed.
Even from across the street, I could see the greenish stain upon her apron. Such a stain would be very typical of one who handles a large amount of flowers. Then I noticed the scissors in her pocket. Could be a tailor, but combined with the stain, almost certainly related to the cutting of flowers. Likewise, you note it's been a very warm summer. Not the best conditions for raising robust flowers. As she was not carrying her wares, it was obvious she had to take a second place of employ. She was looking at the flat numbers, so the only obvious choice of job that she could have obtained is that of a delivery person.
Wonderful.
Commonplace. You saw all the same details I did. I just observed them. Look at this.
Why, this is terrible.
Does seem a little out of common.
There's been a bit of bad business during the night. At 3 Lawston Ave off the Brixton Road, our man on the beat saw a light on it too, and as it was an empty house, felt something was amiss. The front door was open, and in the front room, which was bare of furniture, was the body of a gentleman. He was a well-dressed man, with cards in his pocket bearing the name Enoch J. Dweber, Cleveland, Ohio, USA. There were marks of blood in the room, but no wound upon his person. We are at a loss as to how he came into the empty house. Indeed, the whole affair is a puzzler. If you could come round the house any time before noon, you will find me there. I have left everything in status quo until I hear from you. I would esteem it a great kindness if you would favor me with your opinion. Yours, Lestrade.
Lestrade is the pick of the bad lot at Scotland Yard. He's quick and energetic, but conventional, shockingly so.
Oh, surely there's not a moment to be lost. Shall I call you a cab?
I'm not sure about whether I should go.
Not sure that you'll go, but he is begging you to help him.
Lestrade knows I'm his superior and acknowledges it to me, but he'd cut his tongue out before he'd own it to any third person. However, we may as well go and have a look. Come on, get your hat.
You wish me to come?
Yes, you have nothing better to do.
Well, that's not true. I would love to come. Holmes and I hopped into a cab. We rushed to Brixton Road. Holmes didn't utter a single word. He just looked out the window. Even when I spoke to him directly, he wouldn't give me one hint that he had heard me. Lovely weather we're having. See? We arrived and hopped out. Holmes did nothing but stare at the ground in front of the house. You're not giving much weight to the matter in hand.
No data yet. It is a capital mistake to theorize before you have all the evidence. It biases the judgment.
You will have your data soon, for this is Brixton Road, and that is the house, if I'm not mistaken.
Yes, so it is.
Every instinct I had was to rush over to the house, but I don't recall Holmes even looking at the house.
Lestrade, this is Dr. John Watson, my associate. He'll be providing his medical expertise for this case.
Pleased to meet you. It is indeed kind of you to come. I have left everything untouched.
Except for that. If a herd of wild buffaloes passed along, they could not have left a greater mess. No doubt, Lestrade, you came to your own conclusions before you permitted this.
I had so much to do inside, I relied on the beat cop to take care of this.
You did not arrive at a cab?
No, sir.
Well, let's go look at the room.
This case will cause quite a stir, sir. I haven't seen anything like it, and I'm no chicken.
I had a subdued feeling at my heart when we entered the room. The subdued feeling that the presence of death inspires. Now, I have seen death in many forms, but never has it appeared to me with a more fearsome aspect than in that dark, grimy house.
And you're sure there is no wound upon the body?
Positive.
Watson, your expertise, please.
There doesn't appear to be a wound on the body. From the way that his limbs are clenched like his jaw, death was a struggle.
So then the blood must belong to a second individual, presumably the murderer, if murder has been committed. Murder. And you're sure the body's not been moved?
None more than was necessary for the purposes of examination.
All right. You may take him to the mortuary now. There's really nothing more to be learned here. Oh.
There's been a woman here. That's a woman's wedding ring.
Well, it was tucked into his hem, so either it fell there or it was placed there.
Well, this complicates the matter. Heaven knows they were complicated enough.
Sure, it doesn't simplify them. What else was found on the body?
I have it all here. A gold watch, a gold pin, 6 pounds, cards with the name Enoch J. Dweber, and 2 letters, one to E.J. Dweber and another to a Joseph Stangerson.
Yes, these are both addressed to American Exchange, Strand, to be left till called for. But we and Steamship Company. They refer to sailing of their ships from Liverpool. This unfortunate man was about to return to New York. You made any inquiries into this man, Stangerson?
We did at once. I sent advertisements to all the newspapers.
Did you send a Cleveland?
We telegraphed this morning.
What did you ask?
I asked about Stangerson.
Aha! Look at this, I've just made a discovery of the highest importance.
So what do you think of that?
The murderer was going to write the female name of Rachel, but was disturbed before he or she could finish.
I beg your pardon.
Now this is the Holmes I have come to know. He has often reminded me that I see everything he sees, but I lack the ability to observe. No detail is too small for him. Everything has meaning. A speck of dust lands in a particular spot for a reason.
They say that genius is the infinite capacity for taking pains. A very bad definition, but it does apply to detective work.
What's your theory, sir?
I should like to speak to the constable who discovered the body. Can I get his name and address?
John Rentz. He's off duty now. You'll find him at 46 Audrey Court, Kensington Parkgate.
All right. Let's go, Doctor, and have a look in on him. There has been a murder done. The murderer was more than 6 feet high and in the prime of his life. He had small feet for his height. He wore coarse square-toed boots, smoked a Trichinopoly cigar, arrived with his victim in a 4-wheeled cab. These are just a few indications, but they may assist you.
If this man was murdered, how was it done?
Poison. One other thing. The word Rach is the German word for revenge, so don't lose your time looking for Miss Rachel. There is nothing like first-hand evidence. Matter of fact, my mind is entirely made up upon the matter. However, we may as well learn all that is to be learned.
Your mind is made up. You amaze me, Holmes. Surely you are not as sure as you pretend to be of all the particulars of which you gave.
There's no room for a mistake. When we arrived, I observed that a cab had made 2 ruts with its wheels close to the curb. Now, up to last night, we've had no rain for a week, so the wheels which left such a deep impression must have been there overnight. Since the cab arrived after the rain began, but was not there at any time in the morning, it brought those 2 individuals to the house.
What about the other man's height?
Height of a man can be told from the length of the stride. It's a simple calculation.
And his age?
Based on his stride of 4.5 feet, without the slightest effort, it stands to reason that he's in the prime of his life. There was a puddle outside the residence. 2 sets of footprints walked towards it. One set walked around, the other hopped over. The ones that walked around belonged to the deceased, or belonged, I should say. No mystery about it, just applying to ordinary life a few precepts of observation and deduction.
Well, what about the cigar?
As for the cigar, I found a bit of ash scattered about the room. I found that it was black in color and flaky. Such an ash can only be produced by trichinometry. I've made a special study of cigar ash.
My head is in a whirl.
I tell you this. 2 sets of shoes exited the cab, their occupants arm in arm. When they reached the room, 1 set of shoes, the murderer, went about at an increasing pace until the build-up to the eventual murder. John Rance, I presume?
Who wants to know?
I'm Sherlock Holmes, and this is Dr. John Watson, my associate. We were hoping to ask you a few questions about the murder you discovered on Brixton Road.
I made my report at the office.
Well, we were hoping to hear it from your own lips.
Well, I shall be happy to tell you anything I can. I'll tell you from the beginning. My times from at 10 o'clock at night to 6 o'clock in the morning. At 1 o'clock it began to rain. I stood at the corner of Henrietta Street. I decided to take a look down Brixton Road. It was dirty and lonely. Not a soul did I meet all the way down. Suddenly, a glint of light caught my eye from the window of that building. I knew it was empty. The old tenant died of typhoid fever. I suspected something was wrong when I got up to the door.
You stopped. You went back to the garden gate. Now, what did you do that for?
Why, sir, that's true. How'd you come to know of it? Heaven only knows. You see, it was still so lonesome when I got to the door, I thought it'd be none the worse with someone with me. I ain't fearing nothing on this side of the grave. But I thought it might be him who died of typhoid fever. Inspecting the drains of what killed him. So I walked back to the gate.
Was there anyone in the street at that time?
Not a living soul, sir, nor as much as a dog. So I pulled myself together and I went back to the door. By the light of a flickering candle on the mantelpiece, I saw...
No, hey, no. I know everything you saw. You walked around the room several times. You know what you walked
Whoever's trained to see all this? Seems to me he knows the deals more than you should.
Don't go arresting me for murder. I'm a hound, not a wolf, working for the straw. Now, after the house, what happened next?
I went back to the gate and sounded my whistle.
And was there anyone in the street at that time?
Well, no, as far as anyone of any use goes.
What does that mean?
I've seen many a drunk chap in my time, but not as drunk as that cove. He was at the gate when I came out. He was far less standing, let alone help.
What sort of man was he?
He was an uncommon drunk sort of man. He would have found himself in the station if I hadn't been so taken up.
His face, his dress, didn't you notice them?
I should think I did notice him, seeing as I prop him up and everything. He was a long chap, drunk.
That'll do. What became of him?
Oh, we had enough to do without looking after him. I'll wager he found his way home.
Did you see his clothing?
A brown overcoat.
You didn't happen to see or hear a cab after that, did you?
No.
Well, here's a half sovereign for you. Rance, you will never rise to the force. That head of yours should be for use as well as an ornament. You may well have earned your sergeant's stripes last night. The man that you held in your arms is the man who holds the key to this mystery.
Whoa.
Oh, there's no use arguing it with me. I tell you it is so. Come along, Doctor.
Oh.
What plundering food.
Don't you think you were a little hard on him, Holmes?
Why spare the ego of someone who clearly doesn't deserve it?
Well, how is he to know that that drunkard was a key player in the mystery?
Isn't it obvious, Watson?
I'm rather in the dark still. Is it true that that man was the second player in this mystery? I mean, why would he come back to the house after leaving it? That is not the way of the criminal.
The ring, man, the ring. That's what he came back for. We shall bait a line with that brig. I'll have him, Doctor. I mean, 2-1 I have him. Studying Scarlet, eh? Ah, the Scarlet thread of murders running through the colorless skein of life. Now duty is to unravel it, isolate it, and expose every inch of it. But now for tea.
Ladies and gentlemen, we'll be back in about 10 minutes, so please make yourself comfortable. Grab a pint or some crisps. We'll see you soon.
Let me make it very clear, Dr. Watson. I will not allow rotten, disgusting fish in the kitchen counter. I won't allow it.
I'm sorry, what are you referring to?
Don't you smell that?
No, I'm
You-
sorry.
You must have blindness of the nose then. Go and look for yourself.
Oh, that is vile! I'm so sorry, Mrs. Hudson. I had no idea that was there. I must have been asleep and it must have been put there overnight, and while I was sleeping, I must have become accustomed to the scent.
I won't stand for it. Do you hear me?
Absolutely.
What's the matter? You're not looking quite yourself this morning. Did the Brixton Road affairs upset you?
Mrs. Hudson is not pleased with us, Holmes.
I'm not.
There's a rotten fish in the kitchen.
Oh, that. Yeah, that's my experiment.
Your experiment, what in blazes do you want with a rotting dead fish?
What sensitivity of the nose to detect rotting flesh? Tell me, Watson, did you notice the smell of the fish this morning?
No.
I noticed the minute I came in here.
Excellent!
I want it out of here. Or you're out of here.
The experiment was a success. I have no need for the fish anymore. Would you like it, Miss Hudson? Perhaps for dinner this evening.
Get it out of here.
I have no words, Holmes.
Have you seen the evening paper?
No.
Well, it gives a fairly good account of what happened. It does not mention the fact that a wedding ring was found, just as well it does not.
Why?
Read this advertisement. That was sent to every paper this morning, immediately after the affair.
Now I have to climb up to the flower box again. Thank you, Holmes. In Brixton Road this morning, a plain gold wedding band was found in the roadway between White Hart Tavern and Holland Grove. Apply Dr. Watson, 221B Baker Street, between 8 and 9 this evening.
Excuse me using your name. If I'd used my own, some of these dunderheads would have recognized it and meddled in the affair.
Well, that is all right, but supposing anyone applies, I have no ring.
Oh, yes, you have. This will do very nicely. It is almost a facsimile.
Well, who do you expect to answer this advertisement?
Why, the man in the brown coat. Or if he doesn't come, he'll send an accomplice.
Will he not consider it as too dangerous?
Not at all. If my view of the case is correct, and I have every reason to believe it is, he would rather risk everything than lose that ring. He dropped it while stooping over Trevor's body and did not notice it at the time. When he returned later to try to find it, he found the police already on scene and had to act drunk in order to allay their suspicions, which would have been aroused by his sudden arrival at the garden gate. He has no way of knowing if he lost it outside or lost it in the house. Now, he will eagerly look out at the evening papers in the hopes of finding it amongst the articles found. He will come. You shall see him within an hour.
And then what?
Then leave me to deal with him. Have you any arms?
Well, I have my old service revolver and a few cartridges.
Better clean it and load it. He'll be a desperate man. I'll take him unawares, but it's best to be prepared for anything.
Fish.
Excuse me?
The rotting fish.
Oh, yes, that. I've got some new ideas. An interesting new thesis has come to mind.
I have a feeling I'm going to owe Stamford a pound.
Haven't figured me out just yet?
How did you... Oh, never mind. It is 8 o'clock now.
Yes, he'll probably be here soon. Place the pistol in your pocket. When the fellow arrives, speak to him in an ordinary way. I'll leave the rest to me. Don't look at him too hard. We don't want to frighten him.
Hang on a minute.
Does Dr. Watson live here?
That he does.
May I see him?
Right this way.
you, Mrs. Hudson.
Would you like some tea?
No, not right now, thank you.
I'll make some anyway.
Come in.
Is this ad what's brought me here, good gentlemen? A gold wedding ring found in Brixton Road. It belongs to me girl Sally, who was married only this time 12 months. Her husband being a steward on a union boat, and what he'd say if he come home and found her without her ring is more than I can think. If it please ya, Sally went to the circus last night.
Is this the ring?
Oh, Lord be thanked. My girl will be a happy woman this night. Thus a ring.
What is your address?
13 Dongan Street, Armstitch. A very way from here.
Brixton Road does not lie between any circus and Houndsditch.
The gentleman asked me for my address. Sally lives in lodgings at 3 Michael Place, Peckham.
And your name is?
My name is Sawyer. Hers is Dennis, which Tom Dennis married her. A smart, clean lad, too, as long as he's at sea and not in the company of liquor.
Oh, here's your ring, Mrs. Sawyer. It clearly belongs to your daughter, and I'm very glad to...
So soon? Doodles!
I'll follow her. She must be an accomplice and will lead me to her. Wait up for me!
My tea!
So sorry, the game is afoot!
Seemed an eternity that Holmes was away. I cursed myself for not giving Holmes my revolver when he left. I did a poor job passing the time. I tried to read, but I had to reread the same sentence a dozen times until I finally gave up and attempted to play the violin. That was a disaster. I also drank so much tea that I feared my kidneys would explode from overuse. Finally, he returned.
Wouldn't have the Scotland Yarders know it for a minute. Chaffed them so much they never let me hear the end of it.
Well, what is it then?
I don't mind telling you the story against myself. I followed the old woman and she hailed a cab. And I heard her say to the driver, drive to 13 Duncan Street, Houndsditch. And away they went. Now, I hopped on the back. When we arrived at the street, I hopped off and watched from a ways back. The driver hopped down, opened the door, no one came out. Now, I rushed over and there was no passenger inside. We inquired at number 13. It belonged to a man named Heswick. He had no knowledge of anyone named Sawyer or Dennis.
Do you mean to say that that tottering, feeble old woman somehow got out of the cab while it was in motion without either you or the driver seeing her?
Old woman be damned. We were the old woman to be taken in. Must have been a young man, and an active one too. Besides being an incomparable actor, his disguise was remarkable. Now, Doctor, you look down up. Take my advice and terminate.
Are you better? Will you be turning in soon?
Sleep at a time like this? Too much to ponder.
Or would you like me to sit up and talk it out with you?
No, I'd like to be alone with my thoughts. You'd only get in the way.
Well, I see. Have a good night then.
Watson,
Yes, you need my help.
what happened to the fish?
Mrs. Hudson promised me physical harm if I should stand in her way of disposing of it.
You didn't put up a good fight?
Good night, Holmes. Good morning, Holmes.
Tea?
Oh, thank you, Mrs. Hudson.
Mr. Holmes, have you been here all night? I said,
I think he's preoccupied.
too preoccupied for manners.
It appears so. Thank you for the tea, Mrs. Hudson.
My heavens!
Pardon, ma'am.
Which way are you going?
My apologies.
She's with me. Thank you for the tea, Mrs. Hudson. Dr. John Watson, allow me to introduce Wiggins, captain of the Baker Street Division of my secret police force, the Baker Street Irregulars.
Pleased to meet you.
A doctor, eh? You must write for yourself, eh? Start point, doctor?
Attention! Wiggins, have you found it yet?
No, sir, we ain't.
Hardly thought you would. You must keep on until you do. Now, here's your wages. Off you go. Come back with a better report next time.
Yes, sir.
Watch where you're going.
Sorry, Mum.
More work to be got out of one of those little beggars than a dozen on the force. They go everywhere and hear everything. They're as sharp as needles.
Is this about the Brixton Road case?
Yes, there is a point which I wish to ascertain. It's merely a matter of time. We shall be hearing some news now with a vengeance. Hearing from Lestrade any minute.
Now, how could you possibly know that?
I see him walking into our flat as we speak.
Give us a moment. Gentlemen, someone to see you. Would you like some tea?
Not
Yes,
necessary.
I'll have it in a minute.
My dear fellow, congratulate me, for I made this whole case as clear as day.
You mean you're on the right track?
Right track, why we have the man under lock and key.
Oh, and his name?
Arthur Charpentier, sub-lieutenant in Her Majesty's Navy.
Have a seat. Enjoy this tea.
Thank you.
You're very welcome. It's not easy, you know.
We're anxious to hear how you managed it.
Oh, forgive me, these tremendous exertions I've gone through these past few days have worn me out. Not bodily exertions, you see, but exertions of the mind. Surely you'll understand that, Holmes, for we are both brain workers.
You do me too much honor. Let us hear how you arrived at this most gratifying result.
While the other detectives have foolishly gone after the yellow fellow, the American named Stangerson, you'll remember he was the one mentioned in the letters found at the crime scene. He has nothing more to do with the crime than the babe unborn. I have no doubt he'll be caught soon.
And how did you get your clue?
I'll tell you all about it. Pay attention now, you might learn something. I'm only joking. Do you remember the hat beside the dead man?
Yes, the one from John Underwood and Sons, 129 Camberwell Road.
I'm surprised you noticed that. Have you been there?
No.
Ha! You should never neglect a chance, no matter how small it may seem.
Well, to a great mind, nothing is little.
Well, I went to Underwood, and I had asked him if he had sold a hat of that size and description. He checked his books, and he had sent the hat to a Mr. Dweber, residing at Charpentier's boarding house establishment, Torquay Terrace. Thus, I got his address.
Smart. Very smart.
I called upon the address. I began to smell a rat. You know the feeling, Holmes, this kind of tingling in your nerves. I went to the address, and I asked about the murder of Mr. Enoch J. Dweber of Cleveland.
Yes,
At what o'clock did Dweber leave your house for the train?
8 o'clock. His secretary, Mr. Stangerson, told of 2 trains, one at 9:15 and one at 11. He was to catch the first.
And that was the last you saw of him?
Yes.
No good has ever come from falsehood, madam.
God forgive me, I did see him again. Oh no, I have murdered my son.
You had best tell me all about it then.
My son is a good man. He is utterly innocent of it. My fear is that in your eyes he may appear to be compromised.
It is best then to make clean breast of the facts. If your son is innocent, he'll be none the worse.
I had no intention of telling you any of this. But if being honest is the best way to clear my son, then I shall tell you all, without omitting any particular.
It is your wisest choice.
Mr. Dweber has been with us nearly 3 weeks, with his secretary, Mr. Stangerson. Mr. Dweber is coarse in his habits and brutish in his ways. On one occasion he grabbed me about the arm and squeezed very hard in a most unwelcome embrace. Stangerson stepped in and stopped him.
Why did you allow him to remain? Surely you can get rid of boarders as you wish.
I gave him notice to leave on account of it. That was the reason for his leaving. Didn't tell my son any of it, as he's very violent temper. When he left, it was like a load had lifted. When my son came home, I told him of the whole ordeal, as I was certain we'd never see that awful Mr. Dweber again.
But you did.
He came back, having missed his train. He was the worse for drink. He grabbed at me again. I screamed, "Ah!" Arthur came into the room. He had a large oak stick in his hand. Oh! They fought fiercely. I was so frightened.
Go after him. See what he makes of himself.
He left. And the next morning, I got word of the murder.
There, you've done the right thing.
I sent him to the gallows.
That's not true. It could be argued that he was just defending you, was all.
I shall pray. I shall pray until Arthur brings home. Please find a detective.
I'll do my best, madam. I made shorthand notes of all that she said so that there should be no possibility of mistake.
It all sounds very exciting. What did you do next?
I found where Charpentier was staying, gathered up a couple of officers, and arrested him. He still had the large oak stick that Mrs. Charpentier described.
So what is your theory then?
He followed Weber as far as Brixton Road. He hit him with the stick. Possibly in the stomach, hard enough to kill him without leaving a mark. As for the blood candles and writing, they were all tricks to throw the police on the wrong scent.
Very well done. We'll make something of you yet, Lestrade.
I flatter myself that I have managed it rather neatly.
Someone to see you.
Notice where you said.
Thank you. Must be some congratulations for me. I'll read it aloud for you. The secretary of Mr. Enoch J. Weber, Joseph Stangerson, was murdered at Halliday's private hotel at 6 o'clock this morning.
Murdered at 6 o'clock this morning? What time did you bring Charpentier in?
5:30.
Well, that must mean...
Blast, Holmes! I know what it means!
Imagine the coincidence. Two men who worked together being murdered within a couple of days by separate murderers?
Holmes! Oh!
Games afoot, Watson!
With the newly discovered murder of Drebber's secretary, Stangerson, the entire case shifted. I was amazed at the events which had unfolded, but Sherlock seemed unsurprised, almost as if he had seen all of this coming. We followed Lestrade to Scotland Yard to find out all the details of the most recent grisly slaying.
The plot thickens.
The plot was thick enough as it is. The cause of death was a deep stab wound to the left side, which must have penetrated the heart, but what was above the dead man?
The word Roche written in letters of blood?
That must be it. He must have stayed in the room a while, as there was bloody water in the wash basin and blood on the sheets where he must have wiped the knife.
What else was found in the room?
Nothing of importance. A novel, his pipe, a glass of water on the table, a small ointment box with a couple of pills.
Lastly, my case is complete. I now have in my hands the final thread which forms a triangle. There are still a few details to be filled in, but I'm certain of all the main facts. I can see them in my mind as if I'd seen them with my very own eyes. Do you have this pill box?
I have it right here. I attach no importance to
Leave
it.
it here. Now, Doctor, are these ordinary pills?
Oh, certainly not. From their weight and transparency, I should say that they are soluble in water.
Precisely so. Now, gentlemen, all of the threads have followed exactly as I've outlined it in my mind. One of these pills contains a deadly poison, and the other is simply harmless.
How could you possibly know that?
All this seems strange to you both because you failed at the beginning of the inquiry to grasp the importance of the single real clue which was presented to you. I had the good fortune to seize upon that and everything
Holmes,
was...
we are ready to acknowledge that you are indeed a smart man. But now has come the time to let us know what you know of the matter, and not withhold it any longer.
Any delay in arresting the assassin may give him more time to perpetrate some fresh monstrosity.
There will be no more murders. You may put that consideration out of the question. I know the name of the assassin, and we shall have him in our possession momentarily.
Are you mad? Momentarily.
This man has no idea that anyone has a clue. He's a very shrewd and desperate man, and very clever. Therefore, I cannot reveal my information to you, for I fear that you will give it up, and he will flee, change his name and appearance, and never be seen from again.
Please, sir, I have the cab downstairs.
Excellent, Wiggins. The cabman may as well help me with my boxes. Could you ask him to step up, please?
Yes, sir.
Boxes? Are you planning on going on a vacation, Holmes? What boxes?
Lestrade, have you considered introducing this pattern to Scotland Yard? Look how easily the spring works, how it fastens in an instant.
The old pattern was good enough if only we could find the man to put them in.
Right this way, sir.
Thank you, Wiggins. The boxes are just back there, sir.
Right there.
Gentlemen, allow me to introduce you to Jefferson Hope, murderer of Enoch J. Drebber and Joseph Stangerson. Well, gentlemen, we've reached the end of our little mystery. You're welcome to put any questions that you have to me now.
If there's a vacant place for the chief of police, I reckon you're the man for it. The way you kept on my trail was amazing. I've got a great deal to say, and I want to tell you gentlemen all about it.
Hadn't you best reserve that for your trial?
I may never be tried. You needn't look startled. It isn't suicide I'm thinking of. Are you a doctor?
Yes, I am. Put your hand here. Why, you have an aortic aneurysm.
That's what they called it. I went to the doctor a few days ago, and they told me he was bound to burst before long. I've done my duty, and I don't care how soon I go. I just like to leave a statement behind. I don't want to be known as a common cutthroat.
Very well. You are at liberty to give your account, which I warn you will be taken down.
Drebber and Stangerson were guilty of the deaths of two human beings, a father and a daughter. I knew of their guilt, and I was determined to be judge, jury, and executioner. You would have done the same if you had been in my shoes. The girl I speak of, Lucy, she was the love of my life. Her father was killed by Drebber and Stangerson as he and I fled from Salt Lake City with my beloved. She was stolen away and forced to marry Drebber, become his second wife. She died of a broken heart over it. I took the ring from her dead finger, and I vowed that his last sights would be that very ring, and his last thoughts would be of the crime for which he was never convicted. They knew I was after them. I chased them all over continental Europe, United States, and finally here to London. They were always a step ahead of me. I took odd jobs through my travels and ended up as a cabman. And then by chance, there he was, sitting in my cab. He was in a hurry.
Hurry it up. I have a train to catch.
I had my plans arranged, and I had to do this right. There's no satisfaction of vengeance unless the offender has time to realize who it is that strikes him. I drove him to Brixton Road. He was so drunk he had no idea we were in the wrong place.
It's infernally dark.
We'll soon have light. Now, Enoch Drebber, who am I? You dog! I have chased you from Salt Lake City to St. Petersburg, and you have escaped me. Your wanderings have come to an end.
Would you murder me? Have mercy.
Mercy! Had you mercy when you slaughtered Lucy's father and bore her away to your shameless and accursed errand?
It was not I that killed her
But
father.
it was you that killed her innocent heart. Let the high God judge between us. Choose and eat. There's two pills in here. There's poison in one and life in the other. I will take what you leave.
No, I will not do it.
Choose!
No.
You will choose!
No.
Choose! Look at it! Look at it, Ray! Look at it! You know what you did! Look at it! The punch he had gave had opened up a stream of blood. I was bleeding profusely, but I didn't care. I finished what I had come to do.
But why the writing on the wall?
I suppose that was a bit of mischief. In my hurried exit, I must have dropped Lucy's ring, and that's the end of Enoch J. Weber. All I had left to do was finish off Joseph Stangerson. I knew where he was staying, and the next morning I made use of some ladders and found my way into his room. I woke him to tell him that the time had come for him to answer for his sins. I gave him the same choice of pills, but he sprang up and had his hands upon my throat. I stabbed him in my defense, and that is my confession.
Who did you send to Baker Street to retrieve the ring?
It was me. I think you like my disguise. I reckon you'll own I did it smartly.
Not a doubt of that.
Remarkable.
Well, Lestrade, with his confession, I see no reason for the ring to be kept as evidence.
I suppose you're right, Holmes.
Thank you.
Now, gentlemen, the forms of the law must be complied with. On Thursday, this man will be brought before the magistrates and your attendance will be mandatory. Until then, you will be in my possession.
Thank you for the tea, Mrs. Hudson.
I think you forgot a cup, Mrs. Hudson.
Did I?
Well, you appear to be dead chuffed with yourself.
It is excellent tea.
How's that bet with Stanford coming?
You know, there are still some details of this Brixton Road case that I'm still in the dark about.
Well, to begin at the beginning, I saw the markings of the cab and ascertained that it had been there all night.
Now, how could you know that?
Well, I knew it was a cab from the narrow carriage of the wheels. I then traced the footsteps. There was no wound upon the dead man, and having sniffed his lips, I detected a sour smell. Based on his contorted facial expressions, I knew he had been poisoned forcefully. It was not a robbery, though. It was personal. I telegraphed the police in Cleveland, and they informed me that Mr. Drebber had a protection of law placed against Jefferson Hope. I also determined that the murderer had been the driver of the cab.
How?
Well, the cab had been there all night, so it's absurd for someone to perform a murder with a third party present. So I asked Wiggins and the Baker Street irregulars to search out all the cab proprietors in London.
Well, that reasoning is sound.
Of course it is. Now, when after Stangerson was murdered, I came into possession of the two pills and immediately knew that one contained poison and the other was simply sugar.
Now, I would love to hear this reasoning.
Simply deduction based on observable fact. Wiggins had discovered that Hope had been to see a doctor. Now, Hope was a man who was bent on revenge. Why else would he have pursued Drebber and Stangerson all of these years? When I saw the pills, I knew that his trip to the doctor had met with some grim news, and he decided to offer the choice to a higher power. Either he would be taken or his prey.
This is astounding.
You see, it's a chain of logical sequences without a break or flaw.
This is wonderful. Your merits should be publicly recognized. You should publish an account of this case. Well, if you won't do it, I'll do it for you.
You may do what you wish, Doctor. Thank you, Miss Hudson.
Oh, I found this in the front hallway. It must have been slipped under the front door. I thought it might be an advert, Doctor.
What do you make of it, Holmes?
I'm not quite sure, Watson, but it does present some features of interest.